So the first day after a historic blizzard in my region of the country, specifically in my city, New Orleans, the metro area, I got my first day back in the office on Friday the 24th, so that the commission income I'll be recapping is going to be from the 24th. You know, there's a lag in these videos. I can only put them out so frequently. So it might be a week or so off, but just keeping y'all posted as I promised on how I'm making out on commission earnings and how my client interactions are going, so you guys can continue to pick up valuable tips and some guidance from how I'm steering my clients financially and how you might be able to add some of this to your finances. So the first day back in the office was pretty solid. Honestly, the commute and everything that was to follow from the weather that we had with the snow, the blizzard was kind of frustrating. But by the time I got back in the rhythm with actually meet with my clients, very first client I sat down with on Friday was an appointment preset already with a client who I mentioned in the previous video. That was a client I've been helping stay in CDs for, about a year and a few months, give or take. We'll call it about 15 months. That client CD came up for renewal again. I talked to him. I was like, look, the rates are starting to come down. Cash is no longer a sexy place to keep your money or becoming a less attractive place to keep your money. Let's start looking at longer term options. He was open-minded. So I'll give you some context on that client. I also helped a client who walked in arbitrarily and had been running into some issues where he'd been trying to apply for a credit card with us and constantly getting denied because apparently there was suspicion that his identity may have been stolen or just some issues with verifying and like cross-referencing his information. So he was drugged into my branch location where I was able to assist him. So I'm gonna give you some backdrop on there, and then I'm gonna total up and let you know how I made out with overall commissions on Friday. So the client that I had to start meeting with was a joint meeting with my advisor, preset. As I mentioned, that client had already been sitting in cash for about a year and some change. It took a while, as many of my clients, to get him to even come in and realize that he could be doing more with his cash. So many of you sit in checking and savings accounts arbitrarily with, really significant amount of money, 50, 100,000, 100 plus, sitting doing absolutely nothing. So part of my job is to smack you up a little bit, let you know that what you're doing is stupid as hell and that you need to get in and make some different decisions with your money. So I finally got through to him, got him in. He's about, I want to say maybe somewhere in his 50s. Been working for the local utility company, Sewage and Water Board here, from my understanding, around 35 years. So he's been putting it down for a while. He's going to have a great retirement, I assume, because they have a great pension there. So I'm giving you the backdrop so you understand how I led to the decision I made on where to put his money, okay? So essentially, he's had a long-standing job for over 34, 35 years for a solid, basically working for the city government and the utility. So good pension, good retirement lined up, I'm sure. Probably solid in Social Security as well. And so he's good in the retirement department. He also had around $145,000, $150,000 in cash with us. When I'm working with my advisor, I have to do deals that are at least 100 grand and up. So, I'm always looking to make sure there's a decent cash reserve for the client before I just sit him down and start trying to make longer term decisions with his money or any client's money. 150 in cash with us, solid retirement already in place. And in discussion with him, he felt comfortable to do some longer term shopping with his money to get a stable return for a longer duration of time. So, we worked out the numbers. We talked about his situation, did his suitability. You'll hear me say that a lot, to make sure that longer term investing was suitable for him going forward. By the time he got to my advisor always compliments me, as well as my other partners I work with, in the lending department, et cetera, small business, relationship manager, et cetera. They always compliment the fact that when I send them a referral for clients, they're already baked and ready to go for the most part. They just need to reaffirm some things, redisclose some things, and get them to start signing. And they love that. And that's something that I take a lot of pride in because, for one, I want to make sure the client is in the best care and the best decisions being made for the client. Number two, I'm not going to get paid well if the client is not going to be able to stay in whatever I'm recommending longer term. The way the commission structure works, if a client cancels something short term or immediately, it de-incentivizes any kind of short-term thinking or hustle sales mentality. I have to really take the time out to understand my client, their needs, and make the best recommendations regardless if I'm gonna get paid or not. So with this client, recommended a fixed annuity for him, which at the time of this recording is paying somewhere between 4.5% and 5%. which is crazy. A1 rock solid, because the minimum term you can do on those is around 3 years. Now, mind you, a big caveat with fixed annuities, really any annuity, they're really only appealing for people who are 50 plus due to the tax circumstances. They're not very appealing for anybody that's younger than around 50, 55 years old. So if you're catching this and you're kind of curious about them because they're paying well and it's a long-term fixed product, pretty much a guaranteed principal, as close to guaranteed as it's going to get, is guaranteed by the state. And you're sitting there wondering, like, is this something that could be good for you to put your money in case you're wondering? A fixed annuity is really, or any annuity, is going to be most appealing for individuals who are 50 plus, 55 plus. But if you do have a decent amount of cash, really 100 grand or more, it could be a really good place. He's going to make over $15,000 in that annuity over the next 3 years with a stable principal, tax deferred, built-in legacy planning, meaning he was able to put a beneficiary on because technically it's an insurance product. And again, a guaranteed fixed rate. So if you're not going to do anything but sit in cash or look for some kind of fixed income return, bonds are not always the sexiest, and there's instability there. CDs are getting less attractive. High yield savings less attractive. If you're in the right age bracket, you got the right cash reserves, you got the right suitability analysis situation going on, a fixed annuity could be really solid for somebody who you may know is in that position, or yourself if you happen to be in that age bracket and in that type of situation. Comment down below if by chance this is something that's piquing your interest and you want to know more about it. So that was that client. Because that deal closed immediately when we sat down, he took longer to do the paperwork signing than for their client to agree. Because again, I had prepped him so well. My advisor always laughs at that. So got that deal closed. I'm going to net probably $350 on that deal. But it's just pretty solid. I mean, again, it's a couple meetings, and some people don't make $350 in a day, period. And that's one deal. That's not my salary. That's not what I'm earning in, any of my annualized benefits, as I always say. That's not any other client I'm going to see in a given day. That's $350 on that one meeting. So really positive outcome on that, and I feel good for the client. He's going to be solid on top of everything else he has going for retirement. He's going to build up a nice little extra cash goose egg going closer to his retirement years, which is probably going to be pretty soon, by the way. He's already over that 30, 35-year threshold to get a really sizable pension and a drop. So he's looking good. Next client that I had that I was able to make some money is the client that I mentioned that came in about the credit card. This one is an interesting one because he was really off to an early start. I think he was 24, 25 years old, already owned a home. He works for the Department of Justice, originally from Memphis. So we had a good conversation joking about the differences in the cities and the cultures, etc. And so anyway, he had, been trying to apply for a specific credit card that we offer, travel related, because he and his wife wanted to travel to New Zealand. It's their first time traveling abroad, and they wanted to do a big one. So they really wanted to go somewhere far, exotic, fun, etc. So they picked New Zealand, and he wanted a specific card that was going to be tied to an airline that was, I guess, going to have the flight accommodations he was looking for that particular trip. So he had applied twice in the last 6 months or so and been denied. And in both times he got letters back saying, they have to send an adverse action letter out by law, and they have to let you know why they didn't approve you. And his were tied to identity issues. So he was eventually encouraged to come into the branch and apply, which he did. I ended up helping him right after my lunch break. I was kind of caught off guard, like, why the hell are you in here? But he ended up coming in. We had some good conversation, worked through, built his profile up, and helped him apply for the card. He had a good income. I want to say combined income was like 107. He made the bulk of that at about $70,000 a year. Already owned his home, had pretty rock solid credit, a couple other credit cards with a couple other institutions. So he was in a pretty good place. We did the application. It did not approve immediately. It ended up pending, which, and for my case, with my clients, a lot of bankers, they'll let their clients go on and they'll just wait to see what happens. I call immediately while the client's still there to try to figure out if there's anything I can do to get that application assessed and pushed along, hopefully to an approval. Do you need more IDs? Do you need clarification on income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So I called. They had a long wait time of 20 plus minutes. So I just told the client, look, if you want to go ahead. He left. When I got the back office on the phone, the underwriting on the phone to check on his application, they immediately were like, yeah, he's approved. He's good. So I was a little thrown off. I was glad, but I was a little thrown off because I'm like, well, it was pending. Y'all didn't need to review it at all. Turns out when I called the client to let him know that he was approved, they had called him as soon as he walked out of the door to do verification and authentication with him. So a valuable thing to know, he had a $16,500 approval on his card, so a very nice limit. And he was pleased with it. Very important for y'all to know if you're catching this. Very important to understand it makes a difference to apply in a branch when you are trying to get approved for cards. I know it's convenient online and you might be fine. You might make out fine. But I'm letting you know that the most comfort that the financial institution and the underwriting is going to feel is if you're in the branch, because all of the information you're supplying online is the same information you're going to give me in the branch, but they also have the peace of mind of knowing you are authenticated by the branch. So a lot of times when you have deposits or checks that are on hold, your account's restricted due to unusual activity, if you are applying for some kind of loan or lending product online and they are freezing the application or they're not giving you any extra details, in that situation, you will find they will direct you into the branch because they're looking to lean on their in-person staff to do authentication. So in that scenario, that worked out for him. He got a great approval. I had one other client in action that did not result in necessary revenues, but it did result in a great meeting that I think down the line could lead to an investment closing. This client came in. He's somebody that I called by phone that was of my book of business. I do manage a book of business around $23 million, give or take, in balances, deposits, and investments between consumer clients and small businesses. So a reasonable sized book. So I have to work that book because a lot of those clients don't come in the branch. So the last thing I'm going to give you before I close this out is another potential client or potential commission coming in the future, because that's a lot of my business. I'm not going to get a lot of money upfront with clients. Sometimes I get lucky and can get some earnings immediately, but a lot of times it's going to be multiple meetings with clients before I'm starting to get paid. I have to plant seeds. So with this client, I called him by phone. We were supposed to meet a day or two before, but we've been snowed out for like 4 days here. So we missed our normal meeting. He came back in on his own and sat down to wait for me. And I called him as well after my lunch break and connected with him about his CD coming up for maturity. Total net cash position of around $40,000 or $50,000. But his situation is different. He's a younger gentleman. In a sense, he's about 40, give or take, maybe a little over 40. No real retirement put together, doesn't own a home yet, and has some small crypto and stock holdings, but nothing significant, really probably 3 to 4 figures. Good cash position and really didn't have a direction on where to go with his money, but he knows he needs to look at some other options. So that's how he came into me. And so I sat down and talked to him about what it would look like to set up an investment account online and allow him to start the investment process and at least get an intermediary option going until he can look into more structured investment opportunities. Now, mind you, he does have a job. At his job, he said he's invested in a 6% going into whatever retirement account they're offering him there, but it doesn't sound like he's been doing it longer or had it at a high amount. So he's really starting from scratch at about 40-ish years old. As I explained to him, I was like, look, if you get started with your cash position and have a stable income, stable financials, you'll be able to get yourself to a decent goose egg or nest egg towards retirement by the time you get into those retirement years of 65, 70 years old. But you're going to have to get started now, and you're going to have to get started with some diligence, like real focus. So we talked about his options. I talked to him about getting invested online, starting in what I usually recommend is a index fund or ETF, something like a broad index fund or ETF, like a S&P 500 or something to that effect. I talked to him about that. He was interested in real estate, so I talked to him about taking that money and buying his own property, which he turned out to say, look, I really want to potentially buy land and build my own home, and I don't know if I want to stay in the New Orleans area or not. So buying his own property wasn't at the top of the list. I talked to him about potentially buying a rental property. That wasn't something that was necessarily at the top of his list. But I did talk to him about REITs, real estate investment trust, which is basically investing in real estate, but kind of through the stock market. Most of you may be familiar. If you're not, comment down below. I can give you some additional context. But essentially, I talked to him about REITs. We spent a lot of time there because he had a lot of intrigue. So I talked to him about what they could look like and why he needs to do a lot more due diligence. I encouraged him. I'm like, look, take some of this money, at least start a broader index fund. That's something you could hold on to for years and it'd be a positive return. I showed him about a 20-year chart of returns on the S&P 500 and how that's been doing. I made sure he understood, look, past performance is not indicative of future results, but this is what it's been doing and this is what it's capable of doing. And so I said, look, I encourage you, do your due diligence, go on, think about what I provided you. But look, we need to meet again soon. You should get started with at least an index. That's something that you don't need to think a lot about. You can sit and forget. And then you can work into looking into REITs. You can look into some of these more complex investment opportunities that will take more due diligence, setting up IRAs. Look, I told him, I was like, I'm not gonna be the one. If you want me to help you set up an IRA and a brokerage account, cool, but you have to make that call because I'm not a tax professional, so I can only give you so much guidance on if that's a good idea for you or not. You need to do your due diligence beyond my scope of expertise. I do understand IRAs really well, but I still can't be the one to make that call for you. So I had a really productive day on Friday, the January 24th. Net, I probably if once that credit card gets used and activated, I'll make around $390 in commissions from that day, which again is totally separate from my salary or my hourly and any other earnings that I could make. So really productive day. Really good client interactions. Really proud of those interactions and how they turned out. So I just want to give y'all my normal recap. That was my January 24th, 2025. First day back after the blizzard. Solid day. Almost $400 in commissions. So I'm gonna keep y'all posted pretty much on a daily basis on how things go as I've been doing. And I've created a playlist for this. So if y'all are kind of curious about the financial guidance I'm giving my clients, as well as just want to be nosy on how I'm making out with some of my commission earnings, there's a playlist on my channel around this. It's like my commission earnings log or something like that, where y'all can catch up on the videos that I started late December, early January, basically starting in 2025. So other than that, I'm not going to drag this out much longer. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. As always, I want each and every one of you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.